Hello, and welcome to this virtual theater talk for Roundabout Theater Company's production of Exception to the Rule by Dave Harris. My name is Leah Reddy, and I'm a teaching artist with Roundabout's Education Department.
And I'm Ashley St. Julia, and I'm also a teaching artist in Roundabout's Education Department.
Ashley, I am so excited to have you here for your first theater talk.
I'm so excited to be here to talk about this insightful play, Exception to the Rule, a play that asks how you survive institutions that weren't made for you.
Ooh, yes, I like that. And to
Mhm.
give our audience a little more context for this talk, Exception to the Rule is about six Black high school students stuck in detention in the worst high school in their city. Should they follow the rules and stay put, or should they try to escape? Are the walls keeping them in, or are stronger forces at play? Those are the questions that the play asks. So that's what you need to know to enjoy this talk.
Yes, let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah, should we start with the playwright, Dave Harris?
Dave Harris is a playwright and poet from West Philadelphia. He graduated from Yale University in 2016 and finished up his MFA in playwriting at the University of California in spring 2020. Dave has written a number of plays that have been developed and produced at theaters across the country. His play Everybody Black premiered in 2019 at the Humana Festival and has won both a Kennedy Center Lorraine Hansberry Playwriting Award and a Mark Twain Playwriting Award. His plays, White History, Incendiary, and Tambo and Bones, have been workshopped at the most rigorous and coveted theatrical development spaces in the country. As I mentioned earlier, Dave is a poet, and his writings, poetries, and essays have been published by Huffington Post, Upworthy, Button Poetry, amongst others. Just last spring, Dave's first full length poetry collection, Patricide, was published by Button Poetry. Dave's poetry experience is evident in his plays, which often include rhythmic dialogue and descriptive language.
Ooh, I would agree with that. And I think we should also say that Tambo and Bones actually had its world premiere at Playwrights Horizons earlier this year. Did you get a
Mhm.
chance to see that production?
I did not get a chance to see the production. Clearly, you can see how I feel about that. But I'm glad it had this premiere, and I know it's fantastic.
Absolutely. So we know Dave is a very erudite guy with his degrees from Yale and UCSD. And he clearly is very well read because he took inspiration for some really interesting sources for Exception to the Rule. So, structurally, Exception to the Rule has some real connections to the Samuel Beckett play Waiting for Godot. And the main characters in Waiting for Godot, Vladimir and Estragon, spend the entire play waiting for the mysterious Godot to arrive. And in a similar way, these students, in Exception to the Rule, spend the entire play waiting for the mysterious Mr. Burney to show up in their detention. So the characters in both plays are brought together by the eternal wait for the missing character. And both plots center on what can happen in the waiting. And both have absurdist worldviews, I would say. So, Waiting for Godot is one of the most produced plays in the world, in part because this waiting premise can be adapted by playwrights to talk about whatever social or political situation that they're interested in. So, one of the more famous examples is Tom Stopper's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, which focuses on two actors waiting to enter for a production of Hamlet and looks at the conflict between art and reality. A more recent example is Passover by Antoinette Nwandu, and that looks at the question of what is the value of the lives of young Black men and explores it through that waiting premise as well. So, Sir Peter Hall, the British director, very renowned, who directed the 1955 production of Waiting for Godot, put it this way. He said, Godot can be anything you want. Godot is a metaphor for religions, philosophy, belief, every kind of thing you can think of, but it never arrives.
I loved how just hearing that and knowing the show, how that really just weaves into the story very nicely. I know another major influence on Exception to the Rule is Tar Baby by Toni Morrison. Tar Baby was Morrison's fourth book, published in 1981, and in an interview for the New Republic, Miss Morrison explained her association with the book's title. She said in a quote, "Tar Baby is a name that white people call Black children, Black girls. As I recall, I started thinking about tar. At one time, a tar pit was a holy place, at least an important place, because tar was used to build things. It came naturally out of the earth. It held together things like Moses' little boat and the pyramids. For me, the tar baby came to mean the Black woman who can hold things together." end quote. And the play, Exception to the Rule, and Miss Morrison's book show us mama spoiled Black men and culture bearing Black women for whom expectations and limitations have created a gulf so wide that they don't know how to cross it or how to meet in the middle.
That's deep. I'm going to think about that for a while. Another cultural influence that our audiences might be thinking of is actually something from 1985, The Breakfast Club by director John Hughes. In it, five high school students from different cliques, the jock, the beauty, the nerd, the rebel, the recluse, all bond during their mandatory Saturday detention. And it explores the idea of students can come together across their differences in
Mm.
this detention experience. Interestingly, Dave Harris has never seen The Breakfast Club, even though there are some like really strong parallels between the structure of having these students stuck in one place and finding what they have in common despite their differences.
Hmm. Yes. Bonding through commonalities and differences is very important. I love just hearing you say that. And what I loved about this play is the moments of vulnerability we see from each character. We see glimpses of how three-dimensional students are because they're people and they're soaking up everything they see, hear, and feel. And I think students are misunderstood, and this play challenges us to raise our consideration and consciousness for their experiences and points of view.
Mm. I want to build on what you said about seeing things from the perspective of students, because there's so much in this play that points to how our schools and how our society dehumanizes students of color, particularly Black students. I just want to take a minute for our audiences who may not be as familiar with some of these issues in the education system to talk about them. Uh, there's a vicious cycle in the United States known as the school to prison pipeline. And a super simple explanation of this is that schools are underfunded for reasons connected to racism, which leads to poor conditions, bad buildings, overcrowded classrooms, not enough support staff, which leads to lower student performance, causing the schools to enact zero tolerance discipline policies and, in many cases, bring cops into the schools. They're called school safety officers. Many of them don't have any training for working with youth. And once you do that, there's a higher likelihood of student arrest and suspension. And for context, in 1975, 1% of schools had cops in the school buildings. And by 2015, 2016, 48% of schools were patrolled by police officers. And in fact, Black students are more likely to be disciplined or arrested or suspended than students of other groups, even if their behaviors are the same. So once you have a suspension or an arrest, that raises the likelihood a student will drop out, which raises the likelihood that they will end up involved with the criminal justice system. So you can really see how this is, in fact, a pipeline, and that's a very accurate term. And I think that that's part of the world of the play that Harris creates so clearly an exception to the rule.
It's a very problematic situation, and I was so grateful to just read this play to see how it gets addressed, so that we can continue to see it get resolved in real life. 14 million students are in schools with police, but no counselors, nurse, psychologists, or social workers. Again, research suggests that providing guidance counselors and other support staff members on site in schools can address and guide the emotional and social growth of these children, and with whom they can forge strong connections. And it would be much more successful and equitable way of targeting misbehavior and other issues within schools that are currently resulting in extreme punishment.
Mhm.
These adjustments would help to address the root causes rather than just symptoms of the students' problems. A variety of approaches in classrooms and teacher trainings are working and spreading in New York City and beyond, which I'm happy about, such as culturally responsive, sustaining education, informed practice, and restorative justice practices, and centering Black voices. And that's exciting for me to know as a teaching artist. I know both you and I, Leah, probably when we go into our spaces, we definitely consider that when we're doing our arts education and just working with the students and consciously thinking of like the social, emotional learning aspects of their lives and our collaboration with them. So let's see more of that work continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with anything more. This production was actually slated for the spring of 2020, and we're really lucky that so many members of the cast and creative team have been able to stick with it through these very difficult past 2 years. So the show is directed by Miranda Heyman, who is an award-winning writer, director, and curator. They're also a resident director here at Roundabout. The set design is by Reed Thompson and Camille James, and Reed, you might remember, designed the set for Something Clean in the Underground a few years ago, and immediately following this, he'll be designing the set for What the End Will Be up in the Laura Pels Theater. The costume design is by Sarita Fellows, sound design is by Lee Kinney, and the lighting design is by Cha Si.
Very talented people you just named. Very talented. The cast includes Maya Boateng as Erica, Malik Childs as Tommy, Mr. Fitzgerald as Abdul, Tony Goins as Darren, Amandla Jahava as Michaela, and Claudia Logan as Dasani.
So, what are you most excited about for this production?
I'm excited to see how the story plays out through the actors. You know, the characters in the story deal with a lot, and we don't always spot these things on the surface in real life. So I'm really excited to see the work that they bring to each character and their complex stories.
Yeah, I'm also really excited to see how the director and the designers use that underground space to transform it into a classroom where students would be in detention. It already feels like a little bit claustrophobic to me. So I'm excited to see if they play with that or play against it. But either way, I think it's going to be a fantastic production. So thank you so much for joining us for this theater talk. I'm really excited that we've had you here, Ashley.
I'm excited that I was here. Thank you, Leah.
And for the rest of you all, please enjoy the show. We will see you in the theater soon. Have a great day.